Welcome back, everybody, to another fantastic episode of the Every Pokemon Episode Ever podcast. I am one of your hosts today, Wrestling Chris G, and on the other line with me, he's the man that will not put you to sleep with his voice. It's good old Dougie Fresh. Dougie, man, how you doing?
You are not getting sleepy. I really hope not. I had no plan for this bit. I was not aware of this bit. I should have factored this in.
You normally never aren't. I kind of just spring this on you every single episode just to see if I can catch you. So
honestly, I feel like it's just payback for all the wrestling nicknames I've given you over the years.
And also joining us today, he is our special guest. His name is Rich, and he is from the podcast that is called Not Suitable for Adults. Rich, how are you doing today?
I am so excited to be here. I'm ready to talk about Pokemon, which is one of my favorite things, and just have a lot of laughs and good times.
Awesome. So the way that we normally do when we have guests, Rich, is obviously you do your own podcast called Not Suitable for Adults, and I just would like to give you a brief second to kind of go over what you do on your show. So for our audience that is not familiar with you, what do you do on your show?
Yeah, so our show, I host this show with my wife, Natalie, and we do this show called Not Suitable for Adults, and we basically it all began when we were sitting around sort of watching our young daughter's shows and realized that she had a little bit more control of the television than we did. And we started sort of getting trapped in this never-ending loop, shall we call it, of children's programming. And we realized we had some thoughts about it, not just like whether we thought it was good for our daughter or not, but like whether the shows themselves were good and whether we liked them for ourselves. And I think it sort of began, I was picking apart plot points in the show designed for 4-year-olds. And we realized that we were truly going crazy, and decided that might be a good podcast to do. So that's what we've been doing. We watch kids shows and movies primarily, but sometimes we branch out. We'll do, like recently we did an episode about Chuck E. Cheese.
Great episode, by the way.
Stuff. Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Stuff made for kids. We tell you whether a grown-up might like it or not.
All right. Well, awesome. And
genius idea for a podcast, honestly.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I keep looking around like when we started, I was like, surely someone has done something like this before. And it seems like it actually turned out to be a pretty unique idea. So we've been pretty excited about it.
All right, perfect. And we thought that you would be a very good guest to have on the show because you basically do kind of what we do. I mean, you kind of branch out into a bunch of different shows, which makes it your show entertaining. And we kind of stick on Pokemon, and we kind of had kind of similar idea. We're like, okay, we're adults now. We used to watch this hit show when we were little kids, so why not just talk about it and give an adult spin on it? So
absolutely.
All right. So, but again, thank you for coming on, Rich. So this episode that we are going over today, you actually picked when we were going back and forth on Twitter. You picked the Song of Jigglypuff. Now, Rich, I do want to ask you, outside of today's episode, are you familiar with Pokemon, and have you really kind of watched Pokemon before when it was at its peak?
Oh yes, very much so. When Pokemon first came to the States, I got a copy of Pokemon Blue as a young boy, and played it until I wore the cartridge out. And I got most of the versions that came out after that for a while. And I don't remember when I discovered that there was a show also. Like, I remember like these were the days where it's like you weren't plugged into anything to always tell you like, hey, if you like this video game, you might also like this TV show. So I discovered the show a few years later. But yes, I've watched, I think, every episode of at least this first iteration of the Pokemon TV show.
Okay.
At least once each.
And it's pretty funny. So I'm gonna give you a little history thing because me and Doug were kind of in the same boat. Like we
Hmm.
found the video game prior to watching the show, but prior to this episode, um, was an episode called "The Problem with Paris." So
Hmm.
that was the what they I guess considered the second season of the first iteration of Pokemon. But prior to this, there was a new episode literally 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And I had no idea about this. So I'm guessing
Hmm.
I jumped onto the bandwagon during the second season and watching everything else prior to that. Can you speak about that, Doug?
Yeah, I have a vivid memory of watching Pokemon at like 6 a.m. I'm getting ready for school, getting ready to step out for the bus. I've got a tray of bagel bites because I was a healthy child. Um, and I just, I would watch them, and you stay for the Poke Wrap, and
Hmm.
you head out the door, and I didn't. I mean, it wasn't like you weren't cracking the Da Vinci Code, like trying to catch on to what was going on. Like you just understood that these were monsters and they were fighting, and it was bright colors, and it was good. And I remember being aware of. I mean, I do not remember the shift where it only was once a week. When you brought that up the other day, my mind was kind of blown because I had just kind of always had this memory of it being 5 days a week forever. So I don't know if um 10-year-old me would be able to handle that shift. If I'm honest with you, like, what do you mean I gotta wait until Monday? What do It's like I
So
want the next one now.
for
Yeah.
for real. So all right. So everybody that listens to our podcast on a weekly kind of knows that we like to go back in history of the Pokemon brand. So today's episode, the Song of Jigglypuff, coming from Japan, it was translated as "Sing Purin." Jigglypuff is called Purin in Japanese, and it was released on May 21st, 1998, and then came over here to the States on February 20th of 1999. And Doug, what year does yours land on this year?
1963.
Okay, so you are going first, as per usual, for the most part on the podcast. So, what is your historical date of February 20th?
Yeah, for the most part, until you scoop me out of spite. Um, so on this day in 1963, um, Hall of Fame great Willie Mays becomes the highest paid player in Major League Baseball, signing a $100,000 contract with the San Francisco Giants.
Ooh,
And I ran that through an inflation calculator, and pardon me, $100,000 in 1963 translated to today is roughly $826,000, and then there's some spare dollars and some spare cents.
okay. Well, that's awesome. Mine happened just a few years prior to us being born. Doug, mine happened in 1984, and that was the day Trevor Noah was born. And if you watch The Daily Show on Comedy Central, he is the latest host of that show. And yeah, that's what I have because to be completely honest, February 20th was a pretty dry day in history. Like nothing really happened on this day.
I didn't have a problem with it.
Well,
Yeah,
hang on. I just did a quick Google of February
Oh,
20th. Um, and on February 20th, 1933, the 18th Amendment was repealed,
oh,
which was prohibition.
Oh, for goodness sakes, that would have been perfect.
Yeah.
There you go,
Prohibition was
Doug.
repealed
That's
on this
right
day,
down your field.
1933.
That's all right. I make up for it. I'll make up for it in a week or so. 'Cause I got a doozy.
All right.
Dang. Oh, at least one of us on this call brought that up.
Yeah.
You know, this is why we bring up guests. This is why.
Oh, absolutely.
Pick up the ball when we drop it. You know.
Yeah, and no joke, Rich. Just prior to us recording today, I'm seriously, I'm just scrambling. I'm like, I have nothing for this date. I'm just looking everything up, and I was like, okay, well, certain movies came out. I've never seen that movie. Haven't seen this movie. Don't really know anything about this artist. And then I came upon Trevor Noah, and I was like, oh, well, I can talk about him real quick because I come across
Yeah.
his show on Comedy Central every now and then. So I was like, I will pick him up. Just don't ask me about any segments on his show because it's kind of in the background. It's a background show for me, but I do know him. So, all right. So it's time to get into today's episode, and I'm going to go ahead and get this up on my good old tablet with subtitles on. Oh, whoa, we cannot have that on
Or we can just, you know, play the theme song.
Yeah, that's not good at all. But yes, I got the show up right now, and my tablet
No, you don't.
no, I don't. My tablet wants to be dumb. All right. So while I get that up, I do know the beginning of this episode. It has to do with our trio is actually going through a desert, and they're looking at Brock, and Brock was like, yeah, we have a good city that we're getting ready to come upon, but we haven't seen it yet. And everyone's complaining they're tired. And over the hill, they come up on a city which looks very familiar, like Las Vegas that we went over, Doug, in just a few episodes ago. And you want to kind of take it from here about the little frustration that we have, Doug?
Yeah, this one thoroughly pissed me off because a couple of weeks ago we covered the March of the Executor Squad, and everybody's favorite Melvin the Magician says, well, my goal is to have a showroom in Las Vegas. And we spent a good chunk of time kind of, you know, kicking that around. They're like, boy, it's awfully weird that they would just name drop an American city like that, you know, just kind of apropos of nothing. I mean, wouldn't it make sense to make up a city, you know, even if it doesn't appear in the games, which we've noticed a couple of them haven't. I mean, chief among them just sticks out in my head. There's no Gringy City in any of the games, but that featured heavily in an episode.
Yeah, and they called it Neon City.
Yeah, they called this city Neon City, and I almost fell off my chair when I watched it because I'm like, this is what we were just talking about. Like we were like, how hard would it have been for him to say, I want my own showroom in Neon City, and then you could have just played that quick clip of his fantasy where he's playing in his packed auditorium, and then, or you could just say a quick sign gag, come see the marvelous Melvin and his hypnotic executor, you know, or something, you know. But no, they Las Vegas, even though they knew in 2 episodes from now they were going to basically go to Vegas. Like a minute and a half into this episode, there's a dude at a slot machine.
Yes.
I was so frustrated. I'm like, I cannot be the only one.
And it's pretty funny because, I mean, at the beginning of this episode, I mean, obviously it's a 20-minute cartoon. So they're entering the cities. Things are pretty fast at the beginning of this. Ash, Misty, and Brock, and of course, Pikachu are walking through this town. They're looking at all the glitz and glamour. They see all the bright lights and everything. And then it seems like this guy that they run into was the guy that was in the Executor episode. And we find out he is sleep deprived. He's very angry and he's just down on his luck. And Rich, what was your initial thought like on this opening scene of Pokemon coming into what we consider Las Vegas that they're calling Neon City?
Well, I mean, so they set up the idea really quickly. I am thinking like now, as you mentioned that, I had not thought about this, that they talk about Las Vegas and then just very shortly later go here. But I was also just thinking the whole thing. Now it's been a while since I've seen March of the Executor Squad, but the whole thing in that is that he ends up having all the Executor that do hypnosis, right?
Yes.
Right.
Well, see then that's stepping on Jigglypuff's whole game in this one. So they can't have the Executor in Vegas because then there's already an act all about putting people to sleep.
Yes.
There you go.
And it's funny because I want to throw that out there. So the big thing about this episode is Sing, which is kind of a hypnosis attack in the Pokemon game, and in the Executor episode they use hypnosis as well, which in using hypnosis in the video game, Doug, correct me if I'm wrong, does it not put you to sleep in the video game instead of confusing you? Or what's the difference between the move Sing and the move Hypnosis in the video game?
No, it definitely puts you to sleep, and I mean, it definitely says something along the line. It's been a minute, but something along the lines of it looks like your Pokemon is asleep, and then like if somebody's confused, it'll say like Bulbasaur is confused.
Yes,
and you won't be able. So there's a marked difference.
And I really feel like they should have kind of differentiated both Hypnosis and Sing. I mean, we're about to get really deep into Sing in this version of Pokemon. But like I said, so we're going through Neon City. We bump into this wise guy who's very sleep deprived, as we said, and he's very angry. And Ash actually has a chip on his shoulder because Brock is like, "Hey, why don't we just calm it down?" And Ash, "Why don't you just apologize for bumping into him?" And Ash is like, "Why do I got to apologize? Like, he bumped into me." And then we have freaking Officer Jenny come into the scene, and she is
angry
just
Jenny.
Yeah,
She's mad.
pissed off. Yeah.
I'm
sorry. What were you saying, Rich?
Oh no, I just said this is funny. It's angry Officer Jenny, like dark angry. It's Officer Jenny dark.
Yes.
Like she's also sleep deprived and also in a bad mood, and really whips that bike around too.
Yes.
Like she really whips that motorcycle.
So and she comes in and she's like, "It's not worth it." Or she basically goes, break it up. There's not going to be any fighting in this town. And the guy is like, "Yeah, it's not even worth it anymore," and just storms off. And Officer Jenny just looks over at Ash. I mean, completely ignoring Brock and Misty. And she's like, you shouldn't be out walking the streets this late at night. What are you doing out here? And they have to kind of explain, "Hey, we just got into town and we're just looking around." And she has enough nerve to say, "Well, you need to go find a hotel because everybody out here stays up all day and all night and everyone's all angry and there's just a bunch of fighting and it's not a place for children." I'm kind of thrown back because watching this as a child, I'm looking at this like, okay, well, what's really going on? I mean, are they really going to put this in an episode of Pokemon? Like, I was kind of taken aback rewatching this episode.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you can tell, as Rich said, Officer Jenny has an edge to her, because obviously if the town's open 24/7, she's patrolling the town 24/7. So, she's kind of on a level playing field with everybody. And, I mean, she basically says as much. She's like, you all should get a hotel and get a good night's rest. And then, she's immediately distracted by something else and she speeds off and, then, and I feel like really quick this episode we're shown Team Rocket. Like usually they wait at least 10 minutes.
Yeah, Team Rocket is in this episode like right from the get-go. So we go straight from that scene to the same guy bumping in. I kind of feel like this is his go-to. Like this guy just walks the city and just bumps into people and constantly has issues because he bumps into James and he's like, watch where you're going. And this guy basically says the exact same line to James as he does to Ash. And this guy, okay, and Rich, correct me if I'm wrong. Does this guy not look drunk? Like the way that he kind of carries himself?
Yeah, he's got the sort of hunched over, like one arm is hanging almost to the ground. And when he swings around, his arm kind of swings freely. So yeah, he's definitely got a very loose look about him. Like he's well lubricated.
and then this is what gets me. Like he doesn't beat up on Ash because I mean it's a kid's show and we don't want to show an adult hitting a child, but he had no chill when it came to James. And when James was like, watch where you're going, this guy basically just jumped right up on top of James and just starts completely punching him in the head. And Jessie stands up for him. She's like, well, you walked into him. Who do you think you are? And then she has this old lady that just bumps into her and she starts spanking Jessie. And the guy is just completely smashing James' head in. Like, I'm like, whoa. I was like, the violence in this episode, and we haven't even gotten the name of the episode in yet.
Yeah.
Because at that point we got Meow saying we better prepare for trouble. Like he's screaming, and then we get the freaking title screen, and then we see the town lit up for morning.
Yes. So it's we go straight from that to the morning scene, and Ash, Misty, and Brock are freshly rested up, and they're like, I can't believe it. It's already morning. And they walk out and everyone is still awake from last night. And everyone's arguing with everybody. Like it doesn't matter who they are. Like everybody is just having a bad day. I'm sure a lot of them are down on their luck because they lost a lot of money. They're also sleep deprived. Like this episode moves extremely quick.
And we see Officer Jenny is hopping between fights, breaking everybody up. I mean, so she's probably at her wit's end already.
I'm sure all of that occurred prior to the trio coming into the city. But just like I said, as they only have 20 minutes for this episode, so we go straight from that to Ash, Misty, and Brock just leaving Neon City, and they're back into the forest to continue their journey. And they're happy that it's nice and quiet in this forest. But this is when they come upon Jigglypuff, who just jumps onto a tree stump that's cut down, and Misty is just entranced with this Jigglypuff, saying that she's always wanted a Jigglypuff, and is corrected by Brock, who says, you're a water trainer Pokemon. Don't you only want water Pokemon? And she's like, yeah, but I've always wanted a Jigglypuff. Like I kind of turned my head sideways and I was like, well, pick a lane, Misty.
I mean, she might as well have just said, yeah, but it's cute.
So at this point, I thought Misty was kind of an ass, and I'm gonna toss this over to you in just a second, Rich. But she throws her Pokeball out and gets Staryu to battle this defenseless Jigglypuff, and Staryu just full on just blasts Jigglypuff. Jigglypuff doesn't even like fight back at all. Like after Staryu blasts the Jigglypuff, why didn't Misty just throw a Pokeball and catch this thing?
Yeah, that's actually how I feel with a lot of this show. Like, there are very few episodes where they encounter a rare Pokemon where I'm not like, why aren't you trying to catch this thing?
Yes.
Because that's literally the thing. That's your whole thing, is that you must catch them all. And and so yeah, this good bouncy jiggly boy comes out, and they're like, all right, let's fight, which I'm like, yes, that's what you're supposed to do. Go ahead and hit it. And they hit him hard with a double edge attack.
Yes.
And about knocks Jigglypuff out, and it's like, now you throw your Pokeball and you catch that bad boy. And and no, they don't. They're like, oh, did I hurt you? It's
yeah.
Like, yes, you did. That's what you do.
Good point. Yeah.
And I completely went over that as she's calling Staryu out, freaking Psyduck comes out, and she completely just yells. Like, she's always berating her Psyduck, and Psyduck will get his day of glory a little bit later on in the series, but she is so mean to this Pokemon. Like, it is unbelievable.
And also, I just want to say that, like, when I was playing Pokemon, I would have killed for a Psyduck. So,
yes.
like, come on, Psychic and Water, come on. Get out of here.
And it evolves into...
yeah,
like Golduck. And Golduck is such a great Pokemon to have on your belt. It's lightweight, it's quick, and if it's at a high enough level, it gets the first attack in.
Yeah.
So
never understood why she was so hard on Psyduck. Although, other than he becomes extremely powerful.
Yes.
He ends up becoming extremely powerful. So.
But all right, so Doug, I'm gonna shoot this over to you when the Pokedex comes out, because you like to talk Pokedex entries when Ash brings this out about Jigglypuff.
So we find out that Jigglypuff is classified as a balloon Pokemon, which right off the bat I'm like, well, that's harsh.
Yes.
And it says it has large friendly eyes and sings a pleasant song. So you're going,
sure.
Well, so yeah, so this Pokemon means no harm to anybody. It just wants to hop around and sing a song. But we quickly find out that despite what Dexter says, this Jigglypuff can't sing.
Yes. And
so
since this Jigglypuff can't sing, it's kind of down on its luck. But I mean, we're going to slowly find out, because it's going to be a running joke after this episode about Jigglypuff. But Jigglypuff, when she sings, she puts people to sleep. But Jigglypuff is so naive in the head that she does not really understand what her powers do.
Right.
And I don't think Ash and Brock and Misty, that they understand yet what the move Sing does, because they've never really encountered a Jigglypuff. But at this point, we find out that Jigglypuff can't sing, and Misty right off the bat goes, I want a Jigglypuff, but what's the point of having a Jigglypuff that can't sing? And Jigglypuff
turns around and starts kind of throwing a fit, and she's like, oh, but you're still cute.
Yeah. Like she is so mean. Like she has no filter when it comes to Ash. She berates Ash every chance that she gets, and now it seems like she just doesn't watch her mouth when it comes to Pokemon. She's already berated Psyduck, and she's already basically disgruntled Jigglypuff in the process as well. Doug?
But at least she didn't punch Psyduck in the head this episode.
Yeah, she just yelled at him.
Just pulling back on the ball. Yeah, I guess, I don't remember. I don't remember this bothering me as much when I was a kid, but definitely. So this is a show that I watch sometimes with my daughter. She likes Pokemon,
Okay.
and uh, and I don't remember Misty getting on my nerves as much as she does now, which is too bad. Like because she's a really cool character. Like she's got a lot of cool stuff about her that could be part of it. Um, but yeah, it's a lot of yelling and a lot of getting. In fact, I'm trying to. Oh no, it's not this episode. I watched a couple more episodes of this with my daughter later after I watched this episode. I'm thinking of the next episode, the prehistoric Pokemon. There's a point where she's like, "Be careful, Ash. You still owe me a bike," and I'm like, "Come on."
Yes. and, and we've brought up on a previous episode that later on in the series, and it doesn't happen until I believe like 1 or 2 seasons prior to what they're on right now on Netflix. But Ash finally, after all these years, gets Misty her bike back. And
they pay it off.
yes, they completely pay off because I believe Pokemon with Ash, they're starting to wind down on the Ash character, and I believe that they're getting ready for this new character that's on the show because Ash has just won the Pokemon League for the first time, and he's now on a journey to just learn about all these Pokemon, and he's now visiting every single part of the Pokemon world that he's visited before to learn more about these Pokemon, and he's not really trying to become the best trainer anymore. So he's on a different type of journey now, and all the old characters are now starting to come back, and he's kind of paying off all his debts. So I'm not fully caught up yet, but as of right now, that's the route that they're going down in the Pokemon Ventures. So, and I guess I should have said spoiler alert, but it's already out there. So
yeah.
People who are Pokemon fans already know. But we go straight from Misty and Brock and Ash talking to this Jigglypuff and talking about how they're going to help this Jigglypuff learn how to sing over to Team Rocket. Now, normally I'm not a fan of Team Rocket when it comes to episodes, but they actually had a good idea in this episode. They're looking over with their binoculars and they're like, oh, a Jigglypuff. When Jigglypuff sings, people go to sleep. In Neon City, all these people are sleep deprived. So why don't we get this Jigglypuff so we can have it go and sing inside of Neon City, and then we'll steal all of their stuff. But I mean, outside of stealing everybody's stuff, they have a legit idea when it comes to getting this Jigglypuff.
Yeah, it's definitely one of their better, like, they're paying attention
Yes.
kind of moments. And it's also refreshing because it's not, even though like in their dream when they imagine what it's like to steal everything, they still have Pikachu under their arm. But it's not like we got to get our hands on Pikachu. It's like, you know what, we're a big criminal organization and we should be aiming for bigger stuff. And they really shoot for the stars with this one.
Yes. And and normally I don't do this, but James and Jesse, they pop up right in front of Ash and the gang, and they have a new song that their one-off song, and I thought that the lyrics were basically really good the way that they were putting this together. They're basically singing, they're like, we're Team Rocket, we hope you like this song, and they're trying to hype up this Jigglypuff. And I'm gonna kind of read over a little bit of the subtitles as part of their song. And James starts, he's like, pump up the music. And then they're like, you know us as Team Rocket and we fight for what is wrong. We're tired of our motto, so we thought we'd try this song. And then they go into their whole Jesse and James motto, and they just rock out to this song. And I think it's pretty cool that they didn't do their regular motto and they full blown have like a 90-second song in this episode. Doug, I mean, what did you think when you heard this?
I mean, it fits for the theme, right? I mean, they hatched this master plan in the bushes, and they're like, well, we gotta kind of try to get Jigglypuff on our side, and I can poke holes in the fact they basically wrote this song in 10 seconds. They had a freaking costume change. We just talked a couple weeks ago about Brock and Ash's party suits. I have no idea what's going on right now.
So I just like this song. Like James, he's like, I am the handsome one. Jesse's like, I am the pretty one. And they even put in the song that they're still after Pikachu, but they're going to take a backseat to Pikachu for right now because they want this Jigglypuff. And as soon as they're done with this song, this is the part that I have a problem with. They said nothing in this song about wanting to steal stuff from people over in Neon City, but Ash immediately just gets on his high horse and just attacks Team Rocket for no apparent reason at all. Like they weren't provoked this time. They weren't like nothing. Like it really irritated me because they sang this song. I mean, the trio didn't like it, but they go straight into attack mode. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Whoa, what?
Yeah, but Team Rocket does not deserve the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, their track record is not great.
They have done nothing in the 45 episodes of the show that we've done, or however, that's close if it's not right.
You also skipped over my absolute favorite part of this song, which I don't know. I'm curious. You said you're looking at the subtitles. Do you watch Pokemon with subtitles, or do you watch like the American version?
Well,
yes,
we watch them in English, but we put the subtitles on while we're doing the show. So if we need to pick up a line in specifics, we do that.
My favorite part of this song is the very last line when they say, "We want to capture Pikachu. We hope to do it soon, and when we do, we'll be the new stars of this cartoon." That's my favorite line. And it's very funny. I love breaking the fourth wall. But yeah, I think I mean they come out, they sing their song, and let's be fair, Ash and gang give them 90 seconds.
Yeah.
of production to go, okay, like, yes, normally we only have to wait 30 seconds for your motto. So they give them a full 90 seconds and then they come out and then they're like, all right, well, let's just do this. We know what's coming. And they whip up on them.
Yes.
Literally
with Vine Whip.
And Jesse literally goes, we need Jigglypuff to sing a lullaby. And Misty's like, it's lullaby. Like, didn't Dexter just tell them that Jigglypuff loves to sing music? Like, I mean, I do like breaking the fourth wall and everything, but literally they just had Dexter out like 2 minutes ago.
Well, what they don't seem, I mean, what they still don't know, I guess, at this point is what somehow Team Rocket knows. Another rare moment where Team Rocket is the most in the know, where Team Rocket knows what Jigglypuff can actually do.
Yes.
Like I think that it seems like Misty knows what Dexter knows, which is that Jigglypuffs like to sing. But Team Rocket understands that it's one of their abilities. It's something that they can actually use in battle. And which again is really rare. And I think even like it's Jesse and James that know that, and not, I think it's a lot of times Meowth is the one that kind of like, well, if you knew this about Pokemon, then, and that kind of makes sense.
Yes.
But I think it's even Jesse and James who are like, ooh, a Jigglypuff, that knows sing, and we could put people to sleep. And then Meowth is like, well, if the singy thing can do that, then let's do it.
So, yeah, it's just when they were like, okay, so it's going to sing the lullaby. Misty's like, a lullaby? And James blatantly goes, yeah, when Jigglypuff sings the lullaby, Team Rocket's going to be blasted right to the top. And Misty looks over at Ash and she's like, "Hey, Ash, this looks bad." And Ash straight up takes his Pokeball, calls out Bulbasaur, and just says, "Take care of them." Like, doesn't call out a move at all, but just says, "Take care of them." And it's Weezing versus Bulbasaur at this point. Doug?
And as we touched on, Weezing literally gets whipped right in the face. I mean, he just takes a Vine Whip, just smack in there. And, he's spun around, and he's dizzy, and he releases some kind of a smog or something or other.
Yes.
And Team Rocket just gets it, and then Staryu just literally water cannons them out of shot.
Now, I like to poke holes in the cartoon, but would this not have been the perfect moment for Ash to call out his Charmeleon that he just got 2 episodes ago to take care of Team Rocket, knowing Charmeleon does not like Team Rocket at all?
Right.
Sometimes I like to poke that hole, because I mean, Charmeleon, as we stated before off Mike, Doug, Charmeleon only gets 2 episodes before he becomes Charizard.
Yeah. I mean, I knew the evolution was quick, and I remembered the circumstances of the second evolution, but I did not know that they was so close together. And we kind of did a little bit of math, and I mean, we'll talk about that in a couple of weeks when we actually cover that episode.
Yeah, it's actually next week.
Yeah, well, shit, yeah.
It's the very next one.
Yep. So, all right. So we go straight from that. As you said, Doug, Misty has Staryu shoot basically water cannon Team Rocket off cam. And we go straight from that to Misty doing a do-re-mi with Jigglypuff. And she's like, that's how you do it. You do it like that. And you notice how I took this breath when I was singing. And Jigglypuff still looks a little confused.
Well, not so much confused. Well, confused and disinterested, and probably heard, Team Rocket's plans for it, and probably didn't like that, so it's just kind of there. And Pikachu's into it, and does it, Pika Pika Pika, and Ash gives him a compliment, which is the tipping point for old Jigglypuff here.
Jigglypuff had no chill.
So I just want to say, this is one of the reasons why I was like, this would be a good one for me to talk about, because in my real life, I work for a musical organization and I have a music education degree.
Oh, okay.
And so I just want to take a moment to say that while Misty has a lovely voice, she is not a good vocal teacher, as Ash says she is. I just want everyone to know, like, in case you weren't sure if that 10 seconds of teaching that Misty did was good or bad musical directing, it was not very good. Because she does a great job of singing it, and then she goes, "Did you see how I just sustained my breath across the whole thing, and I sustained my breath through the whole thing? Okay, now you do it." And I just want to say that anyone out there who is a singer knows that is literally what you try to learn how to do better your entire career. And so no, like, you can't just go, "See, Jigglypuff, that's all you have to do to sing. Just do what I did."
Exactly. And
but see, what you have just run into is the pitfall of this entire series. And anytime we run into big logic holes like this, plot points that don't make sense, we have a little motto on this show, and we sigh and we say it's a kid show, and unfortunately we have to move on.
Yeah, and that's literally, again, that's how my show came to be. This is not suitable for adults.
Yes.
And that is why it is like it is.
So right before you talked about the degree, we had Pikachu singing his little song. Ash compliments Pikachu. Jigglypuff actually gets really upset, even though she did not want to sing after Misty. But she's like, I'll be damned if Pikachu is going to take my spotlight, and just goes over and just smacks Pikachu right across the head.
Yes.
And then goes and hides behind Misty.
And Pikachu's looking around confused. Like, how quick did that Jigglypuff move, for goodness
Yeah.
sake?
A rare slow moment for Pikachu.
Yes.
One of two in this episode, though.
Exactly.
But I'm gonna direct this because you brought up a good point, Rich. So as soon as that happens, Misty starts filling up a balloon, and to kind of make Jigglypuff's lungs a little stronger. Like they're trying to give Jigglypuff a little briefer as to how to sing. And she's at this point using a balloon to strengthen the lungs. Is what would you have to say in your profession when it comes to Misty? And we've established that Misty is a 10-year-old trying to teach Jigglypuff, but what do you say in regards to this?
Credit where credit is due. This is not a bad exercise for strengthening your lungs. It's not a good idea to hand the person who doesn't have lung control a full balloon and try to have them maintain it like happens here. Because I mean, that's very funny. It leads to a funny balloon joke for Jigglypuff. But yeah, and this is actually not a terrible thing. It is true that if you have diminished lung capacity, a good way to build up your lung capacity is to practice blowing up balloons. So I'll give her that amount of credit for trying this. Although, yeah, it would be try blowing it up and not try to keep it from blowing you up.
Yeah, she literally sticks it in Jigglypuff's mouth, and Jigglypuff just goes flying around.
Yeah, which again, very funny and very, very good.
But you see, very rarely are you doing that to something that is in itself a balloon. So,
yeah, correct. Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing to jump around to, and then it is funny that because it ends up being Brock's thing that fixes it all, right?
Yes.
Right, and we're getting to that like right now because they're walking the forest and Brock is looking for something and he finds what he's looking for.
I just think it's funny that out of all forests but of course it's a kid's show, that he knows exactly where to go. He picks off this fruit and gives it to Jigglypuff and tells Jigglypuff that here, it heals your throat if it's sore or tired, and tells Jigglypuff to eat it and it might end up helping her singing.
This actually, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking when this part happened, it made me wonder if maybe that's the problem. Like they've been talking about Jigglypuff, like Jigglypuff doesn't know how to sing. And I wondered if it wasn't just that Jigglypuff had a really bad sore throat or wasn't feeling well, which can also affect, because it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, because I watched this episode now a couple of days ago and I've slept a couple times since then. But I think it's not that like Jigglypuff tries to sing and can't. It's that whenever it goes to sing, it like decides not to. It kind of like wimps out.
Yes.
So that makes me think like, yeah, maybe it's not an ability issue because then everything cleared, like the miracle fruit does its work very quickly. I will say I thought it was funny. I think Brock runs past about 15 trees that had the same fruit on it before he decides to stop. But
got to pick that right fruit.
It seems like maybe just Jigglypuff just had a sore throat.
Yes, because as soon as Jigglypuff eats this fruit off of the tree, she starts to sing a little bit, and everybody starts cheering. And of course, Pikachu is cheering as well, but she doesn't want another Pokemon cheering for her. So she just goes and just kicks Pikachu again. And Pikachu's like, what's going on here?
Yeah, poor Pikachu has done nothing to deserve anything, and it has been smacked twice.
And he's so
for
confused.
trying to be support. And yeah, like you said, he's looking around. He's absolutely just befuddled, and we get a classic, Pikachu head tilt into the commercial break, and it's just poor Pikachu.
So Doug, normally you look up on Bulbapedia recently. Is Jigglypuff the Who's That Pokemon of this episode?
I would sure hope so. Otherwise, I don't know what we're doing here. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So we come back from commercial break, and at this point, it looks like they walk back to the tree stump that they were previously at, and tells Jigglypuff to start singing for them. And Jigglypuff agrees, and Jigglypuff then sighs again, and then starts singing. And I believe this is the only time in the Pokemon series that we actually get the entire Jigglypuff song. Like,
right.
Jigglypuff normally starts singing. She sings for about 10 seconds and everyone's asleep. But this time, Jigglypuff actually got a decent amount of her song out.
Well, because we have to establish what, in fact, the song can do. Because otherwise, there's no joke. Because, so you have to get it once. I mean, and we saw it, with Team Rocket and their motto. They got their first episode. They got it completely out the first episode. And I think by episode 2, they were already getting interrupted.
Yes.
So, we were trusted as an audience to be right, so Team Rocket's gonna very rarely change their motto. And, we only have a half an hour. We're not going to give them time every episode to get the entire motto out because it's not going to change, so it's pointless. So we're going to, and episode 2, they're cut off. And, it's with Jigglypuff. It's okay, we kind of sped up the beginning because, like I say, Team Rocket was introduced 3.5 minutes into the episode as opposed to, 8 or 10. So they said, well, we rushed up top, so we have the time to give you the full song so you can actually see that it does, in fact, put everybody in the vicinity to sleep.
Yes.
Including Team Rocket, who is in the bushes again with recording equipment.
And I had a problem with this scene, okay? So they're walking with the recorder. James has the mic, and they're like, okay, well, if we can't capture this Jigglypuff, we'll at least record Jigglypuff singing. And they can clearly hear Jigglypuff singing. And Jesse is clearly recording at this point in the episode. I mean, and as we stated before, I mean, yes, it's a kid's show. But I mean, we're going to end up getting the results of this recording in about 1 or 2 minutes. And it's nothing. We're not there yet, but they're recording. They're like, oh, there's Jigglypuff. And they hit the record button again. They stick the microphone over, and they get nothing of Jigglypuff actually singing her song.
Well, that's a fair point.
But I mean, I guess Jigglypuff at this point, she only sang for about another 10 seconds. But here's the remarkable part to this episode. So we finally get the microphone or a permanent marker as Jigglypuff has in every single episode going forward. So this permanent marker never dries up. I just want to tell you, it never dries. She will use it.
She never forgets to take the cap on, to put the cap on. That's the important thing.
my son
learned,
will.
If you always put the cap back on your markers, they will last forever.
Yes. Like my son and I talk to him all the time. My son's in the in the second grade. But when he's using his markers, because he's still doing classes remotely, but he never, ever puts the caps back onto his markers. I cannot tell you how many trips to the store we have taken. And here we are, Jigglypuff, every single time. And she uses this marker on everybody. Even in the next episode, she uses it on almost 100 people. But this marker is still fresh. But again, it's a kid show. But Doug, why don't you take it on in this scene when Jigglypuff is taking the marker out of Ash's backpack?
So she finishes her song and she looks around and sees that Ash and Brock and Misty and Pikachu are asleep. And she's immediately pissed off. She goes into Ash's bag, finds a marker, and draws on their faces. And she's so happy with herself. She's giggling to herself. And then she sees the microphone sticking out of the tall grass. So she follows the mic and she finds Team Rocket also asleep. And she goes over and pokes them real quick and then finds out they're asleep. But they don't get the marker. They get smacked around.
Yes.
And then they get the marker.
Just full blown, just attacked with double slap. And okay, so Rich, what did you think when you were watching this episode? Like how our regular trio just gets the marker treatment, but Team Rocket gets the double slap.
I kind of, I don't know. I kind of like that there's a little bit of a mix up of action there but I think that might be because I know that for the rest of forever, Jigglypuff will be scribbling on people's faces. And like I said, Team Rocket always has it coming. They've recorded Jigglypuff without Jigglypuff's permission, and that's not okay.
Right.
So yeah, I think a justified double slap there.
All right. And so we go straight from that to everybody starting to wake up. Brock is the first to wake up and he looks over at everybody and he's like, "What happened to your face?" And then Misty and Ash look at each other and then they just wipe their face, and this marker comes right off. So it's not a permanent marker. It's one of those erasable markers, which I guess, why do they have that in their backpack? I have no idea. We never figure out why they have a marker. Because what if you're a Pokemon trainer, what do you need a marker for unless you're writing the name of your Pokemon on your Pokeball? But none of them ever do that.
You gotta make notes on your town map. You gotta make notes on your town map where you've been, what you caught where. That's what I think.
Okay. All right. Yeah. We will go with that going forward.
I'll take that.
And they all look over at Jigglypuff, and Misty is looking at Jigglypuff and she's like, "What's wrong, Jigglypuff?" And Jigglypuff is just mad. And Ash's like, "What is it mad about?" And I think, yeah, it was Misty. And Misty's like, "I think it's mad because we all went to sleep on it." And Brock is like, "Wait a minute. No way." He's like, "Why would it be mad at something like that?" And Misty's like, "I wouldn't be too happy if people that I was performing for fell asleep." And Ash was like, "Neither would I." And she tries to comfort Jigglypuff at this point, but Jigglypuff is still not having any of it. So Doug, Brock ends up coming up with a great idea. You want to take it from here?
Yeah. If my player wants to cooperate. So yeah. No, it doesn't want to cooperate, right?
Okay, I got you, Doug. I got you. So he's like, maybe there are some Pokemon that wouldn't fall asleep, and they all get the bright idea of releasing their Pokemon out of their Pokeballs, and says, "All right, Jigglypuff, why don't you go ahead and sing your song for all of our Pokemon?" And Jigglypuff sings again. And for the second time in this episode, everybody falls asleep again. And we get a picture of the clouds going by. Some time has gone by. And Jigglypuff then gets mad again and draws on everyone's face again. And Jigglypuff just gets so mad. Time passes again. And at this point, Jigglypuff. Actually, Jigglypuff didn't mark on anybody's face. I think this is the
just
only.
got pissed off.
Yeah.
Just got pissed off.
So it's at this point everybody ends up waking up. They call back their Pokemon, and Misty's like, "Why don't we just let Psyduck just come out here? Because Psyduck's too stupid to fall asleep. Has no confidence in her own
so
Pokemon."
Mean. Uncalled for.
So, Rich, I know you had to have chuckled at this point, because I was almost on the floor when I was watching this scene of Psyduck, hands full on head, listening to Jigglypuff. And Jigglypuff just has no chill because she knows Psyduck fell asleep with his eyes open.
Yeah, I gotta say, if it hasn't already been said at some point, for me, as much as like Misty getting on Psyduck is a repetitive thing, and it's just too bad. And like we were talking about before, it's like understanding how good this Pokemon is. At the same time, I think the bits with Psyduck throughout the series are some of the funniest things that they do. I don't always find Jigglypuff scribbling to be hilarious. I don't always find Charizard ignoring Ash's orders to be hilarious, but usually whatever Psyduck is up to is pretty funny. And so this one right here, where it's like he didn't even do anything wrong. Like the thing he did wrong was to exceed their expectations, and not be too dumb to fall asleep. Although he falls asleep in a funny way. Yeah, no, it's hilarious. I love Psyduck so much.
And my thing is, how can Misty get upset? Because she along with Ash and Brock and Pikachu was just asleep for the third time in this episode. But she pokes Psyduck, and we get the sound of Psyduck with sounding like there's just nothing but air inside of Psyduck, and he just falls over, hands still on his head, and she full-blown yells at him and goes, "You stupid Pokemon, you're just sleeping with your eyes open. What are you good for?" And Psyduck is like, "Psy." And at this point, we get Team Rocket waking up, and Team Rocket, I'll give them some credit, because Jigglypuff has everybody fall asleep, but they immediately wake up right after the song. Team Rocket has been asleep since the first song.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we didn't have the moment of them waking up, so I guess if you're already asleep, you just stay asleep.
Yeah.
And, they wake up and they said, well, what did they say? We should play the recording.
And they play it back, and it's just them snoring. Like they got nothing of Jigglypuff singing. And I kind of have a problem with that, because wouldn't the recording have been going on this entire time, even through the two more times that Jigglypuff was singing?
Yeah, because it was never turned off. So, I mean, I understand the microphone was probably at a weird angle, but it was still going to pick up something.
Yes. But it only picked up them snoring at this point, and they all put their hands on their ear, and they're like, "Oh God, basically turn that off." And we get back to our trio, and everyone's like, "This must be real frustrating. Jigglypuff has a very, very beautiful voice, and nobody can listen to the whole song because it puts everybody to sleep." And Jigglypuff still does not understand this. She's basically like, "I know I can sing now. You guys help me sing. But every time I sing, it puts everybody to sleep. All I want to be is a star." And I kind of feel bad for this Jigglypuff at this time.
And then Brock and Misty and Ash basically say out loud Team Rocket's plan to take her to Neon City and sing for them because they won't fall asleep because they're up 24 hours. And then, Team Rocket jumps out of the bush and they're rightfully pissed off because they said, even though our idea was underhanded as all heck, they stole our idea.
Yes. And they just full on are trying to walk away to go back to Neon City. And at this point, did Team Rocket even deserve to be attacked earlier in this episode? Like, as I brought up before.
I mean, it's still Team Rocket.
Yeah, I guess you are right.
Yeah, I think this is one of those, and this happens a fair amount, but like the like final act of this episode, which is this, is like our trio's like dumbest point because yes, they are 100% copying Team Rocket's plan, and then not to jump ahead too far in the story, but then they're like fully tricked by Team Rocket, and end up executing their plan, and everything ends up fine as it always does. But like, yeah, this is not the brightest moment for our heroes.
No. So Doug, you want to take it from here once they get back to Neon City and they're trying to find an outdoor stage that everybody can enjoy Jigglypuff's song.
So yeah, they walk into town and they're, like you said, they're trying to find a place where the majority of people can hear the song, and they go up to a bouncer and they say, do you know like an open air area that we can go? And the bouncer, pardon me, the bouncer basically tells him to get lost.
Yeah, he's like, there's nothing like that in anywhere in this town.
And they call him a jerk, and
he shoos him out.
He shoos him out, and luckily for them, this truck and this rocker chick leans out the window and says, we just happen to have a truck full of equipment and an outdoor stage.
I think this is one of Jesse and James' best outfits in this series so far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not bad. They should have used this for their bridge bike gang outfit.
But all right, so as Jesse and James are pumping up Jigglypuff again, they have a truck that's full of gear, and Brock is like, holy crap, that's a big stage. Those are some big microphones. And James is like, yeah, let's crank it up to 11. And they put Jigglypuff on top of the stage in the middle of the town of Neon City. And they're like, okay, this is going to be perfect. You can sing for everybody. And Jigglypuff is so excited. She's so pumped up. And Team Rocket, it still has their plan of putting everybody to sleep. They have their earplugs ready, and Jigglypuff is now on stage. And at this point, everyone in town is looking over at this truck once the lights go on. So, Doug, you want to take it from here?
Yeah, and apparently it doesn't matter if you're indoors or not. I mean, apparently that's a super powerful microphone, and the entire song is permeating the town. And we cut back to Jigglypuff on stage, and we have a substantial crowd in front of the stage, and they're just looking slack-jawed, and we can see a few people are affected. And then we cut to Team Rocket, and even though they have comically large earplugs in, they start dozing off, and we got people asleep leaning against slot machines, and people asleep in diner booths and in the shopping in the in the grocery store. Jesus Christ! And we see that Officer Jenny's passed out on her bike for what could possibly be the first time in a month. and we see that our trio's getting their fourth nap of the damn episode, and Jigglypuff has successfully put the entire town down for a nap, and opens its eyes and just is beyond pissed. And just starts marking up everybody, just going throughout the town, just in the shops, and just everybody gets a marker. And
Rich, what was your
out.
response when everybody is asleep and Jigglypuff was just so angry at this point?
It's actually funny. We've talked now a lot about how the pace of this episode is very fast because they are trying to get a lot. They're basically introducing and fully fleshing out a character that's going to be a recurring character on the show. And this is like a time where a lot of time gets used on making sure we get that Jigglypuff went to every room in the city to mark up every single person's face. It's definitely a funny moment. Who among us hasn't woken up to their friends drawing on their faces, and everyone just has a hearty laugh about it. And it's a good time. Like, everyone kind of wakes up and it's a silly moment and everyone's in a good mood. So yeah, it's a fun moment.
Yes. And I'm glad you brought that up, because once everyone is woken up, the trio basically comes to the conclusion that yes, Jigglypuff puts everybody to sleep, but once everybody wakes up from their slumber, they're just as nice as they can be. Like, everybody's happy, everybody's so apologetic at this point, and even the I'm going to call him the drunk guy from the beginning of this episode walks up to Ash and completely apologizes for bumping into him the night before. So it basically turned this whole entire episode around, and everyone's so happy. Everyone seems to be apologizing to one another, and then they're looking around and they're like, where is Jigglypuff? Well, Jigglypuff is not there anymore because it was nighttime and all of you went to sleep, and Jigglypuff just ran away.
Yeah, he's gone, and I guess what else is left to do once you've marked up an entire town? You don't stick around, you leave. And
I'd like to say that this is the first time Team Rocket seems to have not blasted off, but even once they woken up, they're just in a cheerful mood. They're like, yeah, we failed, but you know what? We're just going to continue on our journey. And they're just marching out of the town for the first time in a long time, not being defeated or anything. And he's even singing walking out of the town.
Well, yeah, but you hit the nail on the head. I think they're just happy that they're just leaving on their own accord, as opposed to being thrown in a hot air balloon or thunder shocked away or water gunned out of frame or whatever.
So, we're coming to the end of our episode, and the trio is back into the forest where they first saw Jigglypuff, and they're getting ready to go to the next town that they're off to. And Misty's complaining that she did not capture this damn Jigglypuff. Like, she had the opportunity. You could have caught this Jigglypuff and then gone through the rest of this episode the way that the episode was laid out, and you didn't. Like, you attacked this Jigglypuff. This Jigglypuff was defeated and crying and could have been yours.
Yeah, you have no one to blame but yourself, Misty.
Well, yeah, but that's the problem. Jigglypuff put on the waterworks, and they let their guard down and forgot that they were Pokemon trainers.
Yes, and I'm sorry. What were you saying, Rich?
No, just exactly the same thing. It's just you have no one to blame but yourself, Misty. Like, you've been out there. Like, spoiler alert, you're a gym leader, and come on, you should know what to do.
Yes. So at this point, the heroes are leaving up on their journey, but what happens at the end of this episode, and I'm going to point this out. Jigglypuff starts following the trio out of the, well, into the forest, and is going to continue to follow our trio on their journey. But Jigglypuff clearly has the marker with no cap on it and is about to follow on this journey. So
yeah, after I spent that whole time saying, "Oh, Jigglypuff's responsible," it puts the cap on, made me look like an idiot right away. Shoot.
Just marked up the whole town and left the cap of the washable marker inside of the cafeteria. Oh, what the heck, Jigglypuff. But yeah, that's the end of the episode. So normally I do just Doug and get his impression of this episode, and we like to, more recently on the show, we kind of give a 5-star rating system for this, but this time I'm gonna have you go first, Rich. And what would you give this episode? Kind of a filler episode, but what would you give this episode out of 5 stars?
So I think if I go back and I try and watch it, if I want to try and think about it through like watching it the first time, I would give this episode, even with all of its faults, I think I would give it a 4 out of 5.
Okay.
Because it accomplishes a lot. It gets a lot done. It sets up it has a running gag and kind of makes sense. And I think it does that fairly well. There's a lot of issues. It could have just been Las Vegas. It could have been that Misty caught Jigglypuff, and the whole story could have played out exactly the same. But yeah, I think overall it does what it needed to do, and it's fun to watch, and I would give it a 4.
Okay, and Doug. Oh, your rating system. What would you give this episode out of all the episodes that we've covered so far? What would you give this episode out of 5 stars?
I mean, this wasn't a perfect episode, but it played with the 20 minutes it had. And, the gag with the song, once we figured out the magic fruit, was good.
And Team Rocket's song, classic.
Yes.
Team
Rocket's song is excellent.
So I mean, you're probably looking at probably a 3.5. I don't know what it would have needed, what that other half a point would have needed, but I just, maybe a little bit more action, so to speak. I mean, it was heavy on the comedy, and you've got to sacrifice at some point. But yeah, I would say 3.5.
Okay. And yeah, I'd give it a steady 3, maybe 3.5 on this episode. So yeah, just like you said, Rich, this episode basically sets the standard for Pokemon episodes going forward. So at this point, it accomplishes a lot. And we're actually gonna follow up on this episode in the next episode, but we're not gonna jump towards that as of right now, because it would defeat the purpose of everyone listening to next week's episode. But all right. At this point, I'm just gonna throw out there, next week's episode is the Attack of the Prehistoric Pokemon, or translated from Japanese called Resurrected Fossil Pokemon. And you know what? I'm gonna go with the Japanese title this week. Doug, Rich, how do you both feel about the name of the episode and what we're about to accomplish as of next week?
Translation's too wordy.
Yeah, it's very scholastic for a children's show title, but it's a much more, definitely a more epic sounding title, and it's a really cool episode. So I mean, yeah, it's cool. But yeah, I agree. It's probably a good idea to have made that one episode.
Yes. So all right. Well, at this point, Rich, How can our audience find you? Do you have anything that you would like to plug? Your Twitter, any social media? How can our audience find you going forward?
Yeah, probably the best place to find us and interact with us if you want to do that is going to be on Twitter. Our handle is at Not4AdultsCast, and 4 is the number 4, so it's NOT, the number 4, AdultsCast. You can also shoot us if you listen to our show. We always will say, like, if you have ideas for a show that you want to talk about, or you just want to say hey. We're also notforadultscast@gmail.com is our email, and of course you can find us anywhere that you would like to find a podcast.
All right, well, there you go, everybody. So at this point, I'm gonna lay it on out there for Rich to go ahead and say goodbye to the audience, and we will love to have you on for a future episode, and we always extend that offer for all of our guests. But go ahead and say goodbye to our audience for today, Rich.
Yeah, so long, Poke fans. It's been good spending some time with you.
All right, and Doug, go ahead and give your old goodbye, Doug.
Bye, Doug.
And this is Wrestling Chris G telling all of you, don't miss next week's episode of Attack of the Prehistoric Pokemon, and we will see you next week. Have a good night, everybody.